There's a reason that we come back and talk to Rinchen Khando over and over again. And I remember the first time I met her, we came up to have refreshments and she came in and just to meet us, and we talked to her a little bit, and right away I knew that we had somebody special. So this is my latest crop of students. They're all seniors at Mount Madonna School about to go to college. And it's important for me to have them meet people who have committed themselves to something over a long period of time, because that's what it takes. So thank you for taking the time with us. It's really an honor. And if you have any opening remarks you want to say, otherwise we can launch into questions whenever you're ready. Okay, thank you.
How about you? Where are you?
I will find a chair here.
Okay. Firstly, thank you very much for coming, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. And I often think about when people come from so far away places, and when we go to so many faraway places, why do we do this? And very often, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but we're searching for something better, something more meaningful, and we're guessing that there is something more on the other side of the hill than within your own valley. So I think we are all in this situation today in this world, that people are always looking at something else, somewhere else, to find something better. And my secret is to look into yourself, into your own area, and see, what could I do to make this better? Isn't it? So this morning, in fact, when I woke up, I was thinking about you all. And then I was talking to my husband and saying, I'll be talking to the students. Mr. Mailliard will be coming, and he's been doing this for the last many years. And we were talking about how people really, as I said earlier, go around and look for certain things. And so he was also with the same view. He said, oh, it's so wonderful that these young people come all the way here, and people like Mr. Professor make it possible for you to come. I think this is wonderful. Otherwise, I think we lived too much again in our own little corner and never knew what was happening in the other side, which is also not good. I really hope that by your coming here, we'll be able to share certain things or answer your questions in the way that when you go back, you can improve your own world and make it better for yourself and for people around. We can't change people overnight. Buddha couldn't change, Jesus Christ couldn't change, nor did Allah change. Nobody could change us overnight, so how can we? But we can change ourselves. So I think this is how we have to go. Because even in a home, when you have children, parents, we often point fingers on either dad, mom, or you girl, you boy, but we forget to look into ourselves. So I would say it's so important to look into ourselves, because we know ourselves the best. Nobody else knows. I've always tried to make a little contribution somewhere, not really expecting anything back. Because if you expect fame, gain, nothing's going to happen, and then you're going to be miserable in the end. But then if you just give what you can give with a sure sincere feeling of giving, then over the years, if it was good, then it'll accumulate the goodness, and then it'll become a mountain, and then you can look back and say, oh, I never thought this would be like that, with pleasure. Today I'm 70, and when I look back, I always say, I have given my best to start with as a Tibetan to the cause of Tibet, to the people of Tibet, but as a human being to the humanity as best as I can. But I can't say I have done anything extraordinary, but I've done my best. And so when I look back, I can always say, and I say this to my near dear ones also, that the point in life is when your time comes to leave this world, you can go happily and say, goodbye, I've done my best. Now you all carry on. So that's my message to you. Thank you.
Do you want to start, Dalai?
Hi, my name's Bella. Can you tell us about the Geisha Ma, the graduation in February of the 20 Geisha Ma graduates receiving their degrees at Domaling Nunnery?
Geisha Ma degree, this was held in the south, in Mongot, which is, okay, this Geisha Ma degree is very, very important for the Tibetan nuns in particular, and I think women in general, because this was never available, this particular degree was never available for the women in Tibet, even when Tibet was free. You know, we had the monks studying all these wonderful subjects, and therefore we had these most profound scholars today, and therefore we learned so much from them. But we do not have a single woman scholar. And why we don't have is because we never had the tradition of teaching the women the same subjects. Although they were in the same field as monks and nuns, but somehow the nuns were never made to study. And therefore we never had any Geisha Mas, nor teachers. And when we came in exile, His Holiness was the one who pointed out and said, you have to study. Just wearing the robe and cutting your hair doesn't make you a nun. You have to study. So when he said you have to study, we took it for granted that it's possible to study it. That's how the Tibetan Nuns Project took the initiative to help them facilitate with all these, with the education, with the teacher's salary, books, classrooms, and all of this. They have to study for 17 years minimum to get this degree. And then I remember going to a conference, the first conference. How should the curriculum be? How should they be taught? So this was a very important conference. And then I went there as a very simple individual. I'm not a scholar, but I felt I need to go there because these nuns are my children, my girls, and I have to go as a mother to see that they are given the right thing. So, and then I said, please don't make any concessions. Let them study the same subjects, give them the same topics. Don't give them any concessions in saying, let them pass for 60%, the others need 80%. So I said, we don't need all of these concessions. And the girls have to study hard. I said, I'm confident that they'll be able to reach wherever the monks are reaching. But in case somebody can't, then they can't. You don't have to make a concession just because she's a woman student. Therefore, they said, all right, we'll do the same thing. And we did everything exactly how the monks are doing. And then it's a 4-year, after 17 years, they have to do a 4-year of exams. During the exams, the best of invigilators come from the south, from the very famous monasteries. And then I would like to share this with my heart, with all of you, that the best comment I had from these invigilators was, oh, we thought they wouldn't be so good. They are really good. The girls are so good. So I remember saying, you thought, but now you don't think. So anyway, they were so generous to share that. I thought that was really wonderful. Although it was the first thing they handled, lots of people were watching them, they were not afraid to say this. I really cherished this. So with all these efforts here and there, it happened this year in the south. So when the degree was ready to be given, we were thinking that it'll be good to receive that from His Holiness at this temple, which will be more convenient for him. And when we requested that, he said, no, they will get it in the south. Because it was a very auspicious time in the south, because that was the 600th years of founding of Drepung Monastery. So he said, let them have an extra honor by receiving this on that day. So that's how they got it in the south, and on the 22nd of December, they received it from His Holiness. And it was really so wonderful, with so many people happy and appreciating that this had happened. But then, again, I met the girls separately. I said, this is one step. But there are many more steps to come, so don't get too excited, because one thing is what you have learned, and then the other most important thing is what you do with it. Once things settle down, we need to get together and then plan more. for the future. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Hi, I'm Savannah, and can you talk about how you were able to achieve this goal, which changed centuries of practice?
I think the main thing is His Holiness, because he's the most listened to, respected, and everybody has trust in him. When he says something, that happens. So I think it was him who really pushed the button. And then to see that the light stays on, we have to work, isn't it? Because otherwise the light can go off and it can't come back, anything could happen. So I think what we did was just made sure that the light stayed on. So my theory here was, sometimes I am stubbornly naive, because I didn't expect anything to go wrong, because I knew it came from the highest, and I knew it is a very profound topic, profound subject that we are dealing with. I used to also tell the girls, I said, people might say all kinds of things, but your attention should be on the subject. Don't bother to even answer. Because if somebody comes and says, you should not study, and truly comes to you and says that, then you come to me. As the girls studied, as they did well, people started noticing that and accepting it. So it wasn't my vision, it was His Holiness's vision, and then it was my effort that we should help like giving birth to a little child until she or he grows up. You help that child to grow up, to walk, and then to run. And to do that, you need to have the child in good health. So all we did was all of this. And then, most wonderful thing was all the scholars, as I said, were very willing to really give them the best of education. So that's how it all happened.
Hi, my name is Devin. My question is, what were some of the greatest hurdles you had to overcome when forming the Tibetan Women's Association?
Hurdles. I don't want to sound that our society or our community is different from others. I don't think the Women's Association had any hurdles as such, honestly, because the Women's Association was founded on the occasion of, because a group of women uprose in Tibet in 1959 on the 12th of March against the Chinese government. Yet what I marvel is they knew what they stand for. They stood for their countries, for their nation, for their culture, for their identity, and had the courage to say this to the Chinese government. And I presume people understand this. Therefore, when the Women's Association came into being, everybody really respected that. And then now, the role of the Women's Association then and now had changed, because now we are in exile. So the women said, our 75% of our goal is to really do anything to regain our independence or be free to go back to Tibet into a free Tibet. And then the rest of it is to join hands with the rest of the women of the world and to understand how women in this world fare and where do we stand. So this was how it came, and I think Women's Association has handled that very well. Therefore, to answer your question, I don't think we had any acute resistance as such, okay? But within the society, there are areas where women have to work, women's organizations have to work, like you do everywhere, gender equality. But I think we have much less crude situations to handle than many other societies of this world. I'm supposed to be on their board of directors, as advisor, so I often tell them, look into your field and see what you really have and what you don't have. What you don't have, you strive, do anything to have it. But when you have it, appreciate that. And also say, we are so happy that we have this. So I think it's very important for us to, again, like I said earlier, to look into the society and according to the culture, according to the ways of life, what is there, it should be, what isn't there. When we talk about rapes and domestic violence and all of this, let's be very clear about it. I feel that the problem is human, not just men and women. Therefore, I feel that if all of us become decent human beings, educated human beings, cultured human beings, men and women, we will not need to fight over little things like that. So therefore, if you are really cultured, compassionate, treating the other one like yourself, and saying, I wouldn't like to be treated like that, regardless of how strong, how tall, how whatever you might be, you will not think of harming an insect. So I keep telling them, let's try to educate on a human level, not as men and women. I think both need the same education, both need to be more civilized, because once we are open to look into ourselves, then we'll know whether you're a man or woman. I mean, I'm sure there are so many wonderful men in this world. And I have a boy and a girl. And then when I observe them, there's goodness in both of them. So we really have to appreciate that and cultivate whatever's good in them, whether it's your boy or girl. And I think their upbringing, their education begins at home. And very often, it's so much to do with the mother, isn't it? I don't know how about in the West, but in the East, it's very much the mother. Mother looks after the child, and mother has so much of a contact with the children. And therefore, mother being a woman, and sometimes, like in China, and to a certain extent in India, you look up to the male child so much. Oh, I have a son, and everybody's so excited about it. Then, of course, naturally the sons, the boys, they get a, artificial, artificial input in them to say that I'm better than my sister. So this sister and brother becomes a man and woman. So I feel that again here we have to really look at it from the beginning and see what we can do to change. And then of course equal education, equal opportunities, all these are, of course, why not? Then it becomes, isn't it? Because till now it was yes for the boys and not for, but again, to answer your question, I don't think the Tibetan Women's Association had that much of a opposition or things to handle that they found it difficult. But they have to also be very wise. There are many areas they could do better. And if they did it wisely, I think they'll go a long way. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Amelia. In the article, It's Not Okay, you spoke about the Chinese military crushing the Tibetan Uprising in Lhasa, and you being told upon returning to your house after a day of play, we've just lost our country. Did you fully understand what that meant as a child, and can you speak more about that experience?
This is where sometimes ignorance is bliss, really. I could never understand this English word, ignorance is bliss. But from this experience, I understood that better. I didn't understand exactly, I didn't understand anything about what had happened in the depth. So, as I might have told you at that time, because my parents were going, this was in India, okay? This was in India after we had come to India for a pilgrimage and going to go back. And this is what had happened in Tibet. That was, we came at the end of 58, and then this had happened in 59, in March. So in between, my parents had planned to send me to a school. That was a convent run by Catholic nuns, okay, which was very much respected and loved by some of the Tibetans who could come and study. So I was one of those children who my parents brought, and they were going to leave me in the boarding school and they were going to go back. So deeply I was very sad about that. Oh, my parents will be going, I won't see them for 9 months. But I had no choice, I had to stay. So now the point is, when they said Tibet is lost, you can't go back anymore, my first question was, does that mean my parents can't go back? So now you get. Then we had a cook, I remember, Adam, he said, no, not your parents, not everybody, not anybody. So I was so happy to hear that my parents can't go back. So that's how. No, I didn't understand it. Then slowly, of course, it understood. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Isaac. And what was it like for you to have left your home thinking you would return, and then to suddenly discover you were not able to go back?
See, now this is, now as a mature person, I can think back and answer. Otherwise, at that time, I didn't know what was happening. I just followed what was happening, and that's it, right? So now when I think back, as a mature member of this community who had lived from 59 till now, I can say with all my heart that it was all because of the leadership His Holiness gave to the people. And then also the love and respect and trust that came from the people for him. Because the people really thought, as long as he's with us, nothing's going to go wrong with us. As long as he's with us, we can go back to Tibet. That trust was so huge that nobody was miserable, nobody really was desperate. Of course, we had problems of sicknesses and problems of shortage of food and accommodation and all of this. But this again, I can share with you that the mental strength overrules all these physical problems. Because if you don't have that mental strength, no matter, you could have been ushered into a most beautiful place and say, poor things, you lost your country, now from today onwards you can live here, and these are the food you can eat. That could have done, could have come, but if we didn't have that input from His Holiness, that, that aim to go back to Tibet, that aim to be a Tibetan, that respect that you had and dignity you had for your own culture, for your own identity, that really overshadowed everything. Again, His Holiness was able to create a world of our own here. Tibetan government in exile, Tibetan children's village, Tibetan settlements, Tibetan old age home, all this gave us the identity that we had. We never lost it. And we thought, in many ways, it was like a little Tibet here, for which I say this here and I always say everywhere, we are so grateful to the government of India, government and people of India. They really allowed us to be ourselves. Of course, we had to work very hard to be able to do many things. And for that, the international community became so helpful. Because without their help, without their generosity, we would not have been able to do much. Because India, although magnanimous, wonderful, has so many of her own problems. So we can't expect Indian government to look after us. So that way, I think we've been able to create, I say with pride, one of the best communities of exiled people who have not lost their aim yet, who have stayed together, who has been able to give the sense of identity to the children, which again is so important. So far, that has been our exile life, and because we looked on the brighter side always, and with the advice of His Holiness, handle each day with the best of your ability, and one day we'll be able to go back. So people really trusted that, and then carried on. And then in having the settlements, within every settlement there is a school, there is a monastery, it sort of made you really feel this, you are in Tibet with your own people. So I think that way, our suffering, I wouldn't say we didn't suffer. I wouldn't say our people didn't have any sadness. They did, but the intensity was so much lowered because of the leadership from His Holiness and our own attitude. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Okay.
And I have one more follow-up question. So you said that you don't remember a lot about your life in Tibet, but do you have any memories that stand out from when you lived in Tibet?
The good thing is I only have good memories as a child in Tibet. I was born in the eastern part of Tibet, and where the nature is beautiful. If you all went today, you would really love it. It's open, it's grassy, it's got lots of trees and lots of flowers in summer, wildflowers. We used to play in the field and pluck flowers as little girls. We used to make, flowers to wear on the head and all of those things. And then most interestingly, we were very, very fond of horses. The community was very fond of horses. And then here, the girls were never told not to ride horses. We could ride horses as the boys. The boys could ride and do, but girls could also ride, and nobody thought anything different from that. So I remember riding horse and going to swimming, and then swimming means in the river, which really brings back the memories of a very natural child's life. All those things I remember. And of course, those days Tibet was free, and then I never saw Tibet under the occupation. So I have left that memory alive in my mind. And then, of course, if Tibet becomes free today, I would be the first one to go. But the only sadness I have today is I'm 70 years old. Because earlier I used to think if we go back, I would like to go to the villages and try to start women's associations and kindergartens, all these things I had in my mind. But now I don't think I can travel that much within Tibet. And so that's how I feel about the old Tibet and now, and my memories about Tibet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Param. In a previous interview with our school, you said, "Don't cling on to things when they don't turn out how you hope they would. Let go and start fresh." Given your experiences, can you speak a little bit more about this, please?
As a philosophy, that really works very well. But I would like to tell you something more concrete, which is why I'm thinking. As a concept, of course, that's the best. Because why should you cling on to something that's not working? But then you have to also find out from all directions. Firstly, what you want to do is good, right? Then secondly, why is it not working? Is it lack of my ability? Is it lack of some other things that could have been there and it's not there? If so, then you could also try to make that be there. So then finally, if it doesn't work, why go on? I think the typical example is very often, it's not the thing itself, but it's the human nature again with that, isn't it? Because there are so many areas people work together. And if the people think alike, if the people work together, the work goes on very well. But the moment people think differently, particularly if one is jealous of the other, if one wants to overcome the other, then the work suffers, isn't it? So if such things happen, then there's no point. This is what I say. There's no point, I say, to dilute your pure lotus in the muddy water. So you go out of it and try to be somewhere else. But then you have to have lots of effort and perseverance. Huh? You just can't say, oh, it's not working, so I might as well. This could be very well so much easier. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nate. And in an interview with the Huffington Post, you addressed the distress of young Tibetans who struggle with the fact that their country has been taken from them and their families. What do you think is the greatest challenge facing young Tibetans that live in exile?
Yeah. Now the fourth or fifth generation of Tibetan children are growing in exile, and same in Tibet. And we have lots of young people coming from Tibet who's never seen the old Tibet. So it's a very, what do you call? It's a very important time, but yet a very difficult time, not only for the young people, but for the elders as well. For the young, because they are energetic, they want to do something, they want the results soon, and that way I think they could be more distressed that way when it doesn't happen. So I think what the young people could do is hang on to the culture, hang on to your identity as Tibetans, and then also I feel that Buddhism could really help them. Now, I'm not saying Buddhism just because Buddhism is a religion that the Tibetan people follow, but to me, it's a philosophy. If you study Buddhism, you don't have to take it as a religion, because there are many things that Buddha said is also just like what Jesus Christ said. So, anyway, to go back to us, because Buddhism is our national philosophy or religion or whatever you say, but within that, if they really study properly, there is so much in there. You could then become strong with this philosophy and then carry on for what you need to, which is firstly what to do to set Tibet free. And to set Tibet free, also, I think you need to have a vision of, firstly, it's the right of the Tibetan people to live as and how they want to. So to get that right, I'll do anything. I think that's much more profound than pointing fingers on the leadership of Chinese government, because leadership is leadership. But then among the Chinese people, there are many people who also care for us, who also want us to be free, and who also are not really happy within their own country as Chinese people. So I think it's very difficult for our young people to, I suppose, to understand this broader version, but once they do that, then I think it'll be much easier to struggle. And then the most important thing is they have to be intact. They themselves have to be intact with the philosophy, with health, with the education, with the exposure, then be able to deduct matters in a way that it really makes sense. Otherwise, it'll be just like many of the politicians today, with all my respect for all of those who are good, but there are also those who makes no sense. They talk give a lot of speeches, but doesn't make much sense. So our young people, if they look up at people like that, forget about Tibet. So I think that's what I really feel deeply for the young people, because I know they're very enthusiastic. They believe that Tibet belongs to the Tibetans, to the extent that many of them say, why should we not struggle for independence? Because Tibet was independence. And of course, His Holiness said, I don't know how much you know, we are struggling for middle way. So, I mean, their feeling for Tibet is so much so that they even don't want to go middle way, but they want to go full independence. So that shows how enthusiastic they are about it. And yet, we live in exile and there are very many limitations. And so, those of us who are in the field of caring for them have to be really dedicated in the true sense. I'm not saying they're not, but I think we have a very precious thing to care for. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Akio. In an article from Women's Rights Asia, you said, "The voices of Tibetan people, which speak for peace everywhere, must not only be heard, but listened to." What are the steps to establishing that connection so that Tibet can speak and be heard by the rest of the world?
Thank you. I didn't know the things I say are being heard by so many. I'm glad to know that. Yeah, I say it should be heard means, on a people level, I think we are very lucky. Everybody loves the Tibetans and they think we are something that they could be friends with. But on the platforms, this voice should be heard. And platforms that can make a difference in this world. And then I always say, today it's Tibet, but it could be any nation tomorrow. So unless we have a platform that hears these sort of voices and really tries to give that voice its own due, the world is going to be in a mess in 50 or 60 years' time. Therefore, as a Tibetan today, I beg to all the governments and to all the people of the world, please listen to the voice of the Tibetans. But so that let Tibet be the last one to be pleading for such things, you know. And there could be many more in the past, in the future, if they don't listen. Because we have chosen, we, humanity, have chosen to be governed by democracy. And we all want our own rights, our right to speak, our right to choose. Why not? We are free human beings. But then this right has to be used in the right way on the right platform. Are we really doing what we are saying? Are we really giving what we say we are giving? So it is all, sometimes it's all drama, isn't it? Yeah, so this is what a helpless Tibetan refugee woman is saying today in this world. Because I don't have a country, but I have my sense of seeing, hearing, and understanding. Therefore, when I look around, sometimes I feel really disappointed. And if I may say this, not just for Tibet, but for humanity by large. And what is that is now missing. Because in the past, we all struggled for democracy, which is the best way of governing people. Then we also have, parliaments in all the countries, which are chosen by the people. What more? We thought all these are going to give us a good future. But are we really getting a good future or not? I think we all have to think. And particularly those who have their own countries, they're in their own country, they hold positions that matter. What they say has weight. And therefore, let's all pray that they say things that will really matter to make the humanity a better society. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tara. I'm going to major in art in college, and I was wondering how your education in art and art as a whole influenced your work with the Nuns Project and just the general preservation of the Tibetan culture.
When you say art, what do you mean?
For me, I'm going into animation, and I just mean like the traditional art.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I myself am nil in art. I was very bad in drawing in school. I used to hardly score any marks when we had to do exams for that. But I really appreciate art. Somehow it really touches my heart. It's so beautiful when you look at that. You really get a sense of a different world. And therefore, when I look at the art of Tibet of many centuries ago, it gives me a lot of pride to be a Tibetan. Oh, in those days, my goodness, at that time, they knew how to do this. And how did they do this? Where did they go and learn this? All this makes me feel so proud as a Tibetan, but through our art, okay? So we have all these wonderful tanka paintings and different arts which are really wonderful. Therefore, I'm a lover of arts, but nil myself, okay? Don't know how to. And then, as your contribution to the world today, I think you could really do a lot through your emanations, because we have become too lazy. We don't read. We all want to see either in the screen or, so emanation could really reach to the people's heart. I will also share a personal experience with you. When I was younger, I at one point wanted to be a journalist because I felt that what you write has to have your heart in there. And then, of course, things changed and I never got to be a journalist. But then I really had the greatest of respect for journalism because I felt that they could write the truth and bring the truth to the people. So that way you have the best tool to reach to people. But then again, journalists are also human beings, isn't it? So when you are bribed by somebody, go and write that about this. And there are also, I mean, as you know, there are wonderful journalists, but there are also those can be moved by others, isn't it? So I think similarly, your art could be really wonderful, could really serve the humanity, provided you are strong to put your own view. And I pray for you that you have the right wisdom and vision, and so you can really reach to so many hearts. Yeah, that's my view about art anyway. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Caroline. In an interview in 2013 with Tricycle magazine, you recounted how your mother once said, "We'll sell my jewelry and give the children an education. That's something nobody can take away." Can you talk about the meaning of this for you?
Yeah, meaning of this to me, you know, again, as young girls, we all like jewelries, isn't it? So, and people really, I mean, older and younger alike, we women like jewelries, we spend a lot of money on that. And then the point here is, when my mother said, I want to give education so that nobody can take that away, that made me feel that anything external like jewelry, house, cars, these can be there one day and next day that could be also not there. Therefore, she emphasized on the importance of education, which I really deeply respect. And I respect more because she herself was not educated. She hardly knew how to read. You know, but she came from a very good family. She had all the wonderful characteristics of a loving mother, but she was not educated as we know today. Okay, so that again makes me feel that there is two kinds of education. One is you're born with, the other you acquire, isn't it? So I think my mother had a lot of education born with, and therefore she could differentiate between the value of education and the so-called jewelry. So this is the lesson I got from there, which I agree, which I really agree, yeah.
Hi, my name is Lizzie. In an interview with our school in 2015, you said, "It's worth crying over suffering and don't think we're really happy here, but smiling is better than crying." Can you speak to us about the importance of remaining positive in times of suffering?
Yeah, that is true. Don't think we're all happy. We're still not happy, but I'm smiling. Yeah. I think to be suffering, like we spoke that time, it was about us having lost our country and being where we are, still struggling to go back, and not governments and things not paying attention. This is all suffering. So now the thing here is, as I said that time, I say today, we could all have been sitting and crying and saying what to do. Nobody's really doing anything. And will anything ever happen for Tibet? That's one way of going. But the other thing is, whatever other people do, you have to carry your own cross, as we say, isn't it? So carry that and try to carry that happily instead of crying. So that, I think, makes a lot of difference. Instead of sitting and doing nothing, rather than knowing that it's there, but think, how could you help that situation? And that is usually our attitude towards it makes a lot of difference, isn't it? Otherwise, we could be stuck with the problem and nothing productive happen after that. So that'd be very sad. And then also we have, I'm sure other philosophies also have, we believe in ever-changing. You know, Buddhist philosophy says nothing is static. Everything is changing every moment. And then the change has to be made by us. Cause and effect. You make the cause, and then effect comes. So that means you are the one to make the change. And this, I think, gives a lot of strength to the individual. And then also Buddha said, you are your own master. Nobody can come and do it for you, but you do it yourself. So this gave me a lot of strength, inner strength. believing that I'm my own master. Isn't that wonderful? So I think this is what I meant that time, yeah.
In recent years, the Dalai Lama made the choice to separate himself out from direct participation in the Tibetan government in exile. I'm wondering what effect you think that's had on the Tibetan culture.
There are people in the community who feel that he should not have done that. But then, I personally feel that he did a wonderful thing. Because, as we all know, as we all respect him so much and believe in him so much, but he is also one of us. He's in human form. So we don't know how long we have him with us. And then we also don't know when the next one comes, what sort of a next one, you know? So what he is doing is creating the future of Tibet for the people of Tibet, which I personally feel, although I miss his touch right now, but I feel that he did it for the sake of the future Tibet, which I think was a huge, huge move. Nobody could have ever done that except this one. And then maybe it was easier in exile. Now here, that has happened, wonderful. But now to make the best out of this is up to us. The children, the young people, the government people, all of us have to make the best of this. Because his gift is there in a golden box. But what we do with the gift is up to us. So we really have to make the best of that and follow his message. And this, if we did, it'll be, this is the best gift for Tibet, isn't it? So again, as I say, much as I miss his touch, I keep telling my friends, and I know that, but let's not talk about it. We have to make the best of what it is here. And I think that's amazing, creating this parliament in exile and governed by the people. All of this is wonderful. So I think this is not only that, but we ourselves as people have to also see what more changes we could bring. Changes that will really make a difference to the nation, to the people. So that's my view on this. Yeah.
May I ask a question? It has to do with education. And I was thinking, we were at the Dalai Lama's compound last night, and as we got there, just before we left, all the monks came and they sat down and they were chanting.
Yes.
And there was something, I think for many of us, it was very sort of transporting about that. And somebody asked the question somewhere along the line of, why be a monk for your whole life, you know? You're not getting anything, you're living a simple existence, and so what's happening? And in talking with Samdang Rinpoche and getting his thoughts on education, there's something about how the mind transforms in that process. And I was telling one of the students last night that in the transformation of the mind, something extraordinary happens where you live in a different world, maybe a bigger world, maybe a more fulfilling way, not because of things, but just because of awareness. So the question is that I have for you, because you're doing this work in such a profound way, you know, you've set up the structure for this to happen. What do you think is the actual essence of real education beyond the topics and the subjects? What is the thing that you most feel and want to see in the transformation of the people who are in this school?
You know, to talk about education, lately, more so lately, I've been thinking, what is education? You know? We need to redefine education. Particularly, I'm sorry to say this, looking at what's happening in America. Because America, as we looked up, as one of the biggest democracy, highest level of educated people, that didn't really satisfy us. Then also, democracy, the best, is the best way of governing people. Does the size matter? If so, India is the largest democracy. So we are now, I think we've done well as people in the fortunate countries. You educated the youngsters, you really upgraded the lifestyles and things like that. Therefore, I think it's really, we've done well, but what I feel is we have to now really stop and see what have we done till now, what is happening, and how should we be moving on? Because we all meant for the best, Everybody thought they were doing for the sake of making life better for everybody. So I think this is where we are today. And then talking about education, as I was telling her, to me, there is two kinds of education. One is inborn education, the other is acquired education. So the inborn education is easier for us to understand because we believe in the next life to come, a life that has been there. And so we can sort of easily say, oh, so it's accumulation of many lives. But whether there is second life or many lives, that is yet to be proven, right? So, but anyway, that helps us in the way of thinking that if you do well this life, if you are kind this life, if you're generous this life, if you are good for other people this life, you will be reborn as a better person. So that itself gives you a inspiration, encouragement to do good. So therefore, I feel that philosophy at least works on that level. Now, like these monks, you live so simple, you're wearing the monk's robe and you have no hair on your head. Why so simple? Which is so true. But the real purpose of that, Buddha was a prince. He had everything in his life that he wanted. He could get it at the, wink of his eye. But he wasn't happy. Why not? Because these couldn't give him the desired happiness. Eventually what he said was simplicity and then enlightenment. So when that enlightenment comes, then you really are in a different world. Maybe you can be in the most simple monk's robe, or, in the most simple way of living, but when that enlightenment is with you, you have the happiness that nobody else has it. So I think that is important. And to gain that, you have to really study the inner science. Now today, Buddhism and science are trying to get together and really go together, because science has really benefited us so much in this world, but science also has its own limitation. Now if you go Buddhism and science, mind and life, then maybe they will give us a better gift in the long run. So I think that is what is important, to find something that's inwardly valuable. And that, I think, depends on how we all think, what we are looking for, how we analyze ourselves. And that, to me, makes a lot of difference anyway, and in my own little ways, So you're happy with less. You don't waste time struggling for getting more, and if more, so for what? And then impermanence of your life, believing in the impermanence of your life. That also can be very positive, because in a way we say, oh my gosh, I don't want to die, I don't want to believe in that. In a way, if I don't do good today, who knows if I'll be there tomorrow or not? That way it gives us a chance to be good. So I don't know if I answered your question, but this is how I think.
What have you guys heard that she said that struck you? If there are a few comments, what did you hear that kind of rang the bell for you?
I thought it was really beautiful how you were saying you didn't want to replace your good memories, and you felt that it was unnecessary to go back and create new memories of something that was going to be more sad and kind of take away from this happiness that you held on to. It's a beautiful thing to hold on to the past but still be able to move forward and enjoy the future and the present.
Yes. Thank you.
In response to my question, when I asked you about how it felt to be told that you were losing your country, I don't know, I liked that how you talked about when you perceived it as being glad that your parents wouldn't leave, and it kind of made me realize that through perception's kind of a gateway, and that yes, ignorance can be bliss, but that can lead you on like a different outlook in order to do something greater with what you've just been told.
Exactly.
That was
Exactly.
really cool.
Yeah. That's why I say sometimes I'm very naive.
I thought it was really interesting. You said that you wanted the nuns to study just as much and work just as hard as the monks do, because I think that's really important and it makes it mean a lot more rather than taking the easy route.
That they really have to, because they've been very lucky to be in this century with His Holiness support and support from all over the world, to be able to have this easy, I mean difficult, they have to work very hard, but then easy to, in the process. They don't have to worry about their food, shelter, all of this. It's a big plus. And then I keep telling them, the world has been so kind to us, and you have made the best of their kindness. It doesn't stop here. Now you have to roll this kindness to other people, to the world, by large, and to people around you. So you have a big responsibility. Yeah. This is, yes.
My name's Emma. I was actually in the class of 2011 that came and interviewed you. Yeah,
Oh,
and I'm
good.
a teacher now.
Okay.
And I just want to say that, like, a common theme that I've seen from both of these interviews is just like your positivity in education, and especially women's education, and just like how inspiring it is to me, like being a teacher and knowing the importance of, like, that all education is equal, no matter what. If you're female, male, what grade you're in, like that it's important as for everyone. And so I just wanted to say
wonderful.
thank you.
That's wonderful. And then also as a teacher, when you're, I'm sorry to say this again, as a teacher, I noticed that to be able to be kind to the child is the key to the opening of that child's mind, isn't it? So kindness, it's amazing what it does to the other side, isn't it? And then also, I often remind myself and say, there's no limit in the kindness we say we give to the other. Because we often say, oh, I've done everything, I'm now fed up. If we say that, then we are losing. There's no limit to our kindness. And it's amazing how kindness touches the other person. It blossoms, isn't it? So remember that.
I teach kindergarten, so
so that's
their kindness
wonderful.
is overflowing.
Isn't it? Oh, they know exactly who's kind. They know. Yeah. They're very, very intelligent, yeah.
So what really struck me and what I'm taking back from here is how you mentioned multiple times about how we could stop thinking about what has happened or what is wrong and concentrate on what good we could do next. I think that's really important. That is what I learned from here.
Thank you.
For that.
You won't go wrong. I've been doing that myself in many ways.
So this is Vibhuti, and she was with Teach for India, and also the Youth Alliance in Delhi. And so we met some years ago at a conference I was doing there on Dialogue Samvad.
I see.
So I'm very proud of the work that she's doing. There are a number of young people in India that I encounter who are picking up the spirit of karma yoga, picking up the spirit of Gandhi, picking up the spirit of serving society.
Yes.
And it's a very, very positive sign.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You wrote me where you were and that you were in that community, and I was wondering, oh, that's so nice. I thought, that's wonderful. Where are you from, actually?
I'm from Ambala.
Ambala?
Yeah. I was born and brought up there.
Okay, that's really nice to hear.
But
You're talking about, sorry.
There's a creative tension between the students, the young people, and their parents, because their parents are going, what are you doing? You know? So her father and mother came to the ashram to meet us the other day.
Oh.
And I said, you have to understand what a great thing your daughter's doing.
Yes.
So we have to also support the parents when the
That's
children take
right.
that next step.
Of course.
Beyond
Of
commerce
course.
into
Of course.
society service.
You want to hear my view on this? Because I know exactly what you're talking about, okay? My view on this is, We have wonderful parents and parents who also care so much for their children but don't know how to care. Therefore, they want the best for their children. They don't want them to go to places where they think it may not be good for them. So sometimes we have to also use our wisdom to be good to the children or to care for the children, isn't it? We say that. Use your wisdom even in giving alms, because you just can't give just because you have, you know. So that way I feel the parents are so important and they need to be educated on all of this. And then in many cases it may be too late for the present or certain kind of parents, but we can hope for the future parents. So this is where I am working, honestly. And then I don't know, I would like to share this with you because this is very precious to my mind. You know, we really need to understand what is religion. Because religion has really shaped so many people's lives. I'm not saying Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity in particular. Anything in particular, but so-called religion. That really has shaped our lives in the past, and it's shaping today. And then it is shaping because we are ignorantly following it. So we really need to analyze. If you were a Buddhist, also you have to analyze. There are many people in our community who go to the temple every morning, 10 times, 100 times, who read their, prayers. Yet, I'll give you an example. There is a mother who says this thick prayers every morning. And then before she finishes the prayers, if the children make a noise or she gets so mad. So one day I jokingly told her, what's the purpose of this? This is to really actually bring inner peace with you. I don't think it's bringing inner peace to you because you're always so upset until you finish this. And then I also said, the point is not to finish it, but the point is to understand what you're really reading. So if you really understand what you're reading, doesn't matter, even if the whole world goes upside down, you can be still calm. So therefore, I think it's very important for young people to use your wisdom, even in terms of religion, because I don't know about you all, but this is playing a big role, ignorant faith. Yeah. I call it ignorant faith. That really sort of ties you up to so many things that otherwise you could have been open. And then it doesn't matter which religion, but as long as it gives you a meaningful life. And then we go on fighting which religion, who's what, and all of this. I think we need to educate the younger generation in these things. And therefore, I think bottom line is not religion, but ethics, isn't it? Yeah. So ethics doesn't have any boundaries. If you go to a Hindu home, if a very ethical person goes there, everybody in that family will respect. Yeah. Same thing everywhere. So I think ethics is the thing that we have to aim for. And then in my own little way, I don't know if I told you before, I'm being very over-ambitious to start a learning center in that empty place there for ethics, for lay girls. Because I say we have plenty of place for nuns. Now we need a place for lay girls. Because I would like to also, the future mothers, to be as ethical as possible. So I'm really working for a learning center for lay girls from anywhere, Tibetans and international.
So we've been having this discussion with His Holiness since 2007 about secular ethics. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I would offer to that conversation is understanding what ethics are, mm-hmm. and understanding the mechanics and philosophy of ethics is one thing. But having the processes by which the people who are studying, including ourselves, mm-hmm. can experience that, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can experience the discernment required to have good ethics, because ethics is based on discernment and values. Absolutely. And so what I've been working on and we've been working on is what are the processes by which people can have that transformational experience, mm-hmm. of becoming more aware.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And Buddhism, of course, is all about that.
That's it.
But in a secular world,
Yes.
people aren't going to sit and meditate every day, just yet. So it's the interactive process
Yes.
of us together. Like this conversation, to me, is actually an engagement in secular ethics
Yes.
by listening to you and by
Thank
asking
you.
questions.
Thank you.
So I'm interested in the process. So I hope you start your school, and I would like to come visit it when you do.
Well, you made a mistake by asking me soon, because that depends on the funding. So you might as well help me getting funding. Yeah.
So somebody has a last question, and then we should probably let her go.
What advice do you have for us young people trying to find our way towards a meaningful life?
Young people, a meaningful life. I think first we have to analyze what is meaningful, isn't it? Is it being very famous? Is it being very rich? Or is it being very kind, altruistic, and live for each other? Because as long as you do that, I think you're living a meaningful life. Because I see so many people just driven towards so-called a good life, which to them is either being very famous or being very rich. And that to me, there is no end to that. So to me, a meaningful life is being down to earth, simple, but being always having time for somebody who needs you, and then being kind to people around you, and doing whatever you can.
Now we can remember that, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for
You're
taking
welcome.
time with us.
You're welcome.